The case against Richard Allen, we're getting closer and closer to the actual trial
Mhm.
date, but there's more questions, more drama, as there always is in this case. Dr. Monica Walla in question, a therapist who treated Richard Allen while he was detained at the Wabash Correctional Facility. The defense is arguing and alleging that Walla had a strong personal interest in the case to begin with, and that would compromise her objectivity. Also, posting things on social media about the case, recommending podcasts about the case. Joining me to discuss, Lori Gilbertson, former prosecutor. Is this a big deal? Is this a red herring? I'm still trying to wrap my mind around why this is as much of an issue as they're trying to make it out to be.
Yeah, Tony, I have exactly the same question. This is a therapist who, I guess, treated him
Hmm.
once he had already been arrested and is already incarcerated for this crime awaiting trial.
Hmm.
So it has nothing to do with the investigation into him. It has nothing to do with his ultimate arrest, has nothing to do with his indictment, and really doesn't have much to do with his trial, unless she is going to be testifying about something that is important in the case.
Hmm.
If mental status or mental illness is an important factor in the case, then maybe it would come to play. Other than that, all it's really showcasing is someone who was not using good professional or
Yeah.
ethical judgment
Mhm.
in her job and her role treating someone.
The one thing that can come to my mind on this is he's confessed to the murders like 60 plus times. But at the
61
same time,
times.
but at the same time, he was also eating his own poop. So it's kind of one of those things where how accurate are those confessions if that's what's going on? And I'm wondering if Dr. Walla was there, kind of trying to counsel this man as he was losing his mind. Now he's of course saying I that wasn't me when I was making those confessions. I was not in the right state of mind. I wonder if there's some concern there that the doctor may have the outlook that, yeah, he made these confessions and they were of sound mind.
She may have that, and that could obviously be relevant. I think it has been ruled that those confessions are coming in, and the
Hmm.
confessions started way in the beginning with a phone call to his wife,
Hmm.
right? That was able to be transcribed where he confessed. And
Hmm.
then he was confessing to the warden, and then he was confessing to the guards who were walking him back and forth. You talk about confessing once, that's one thing. You talk about 5 times. As a prosecutor, you're like, great.
Yeah.
This guy's telling me exactly what he's doing. When you get up into the 60s, um, it really sounds like this is someone who wants to tell everyone what he did and wants to get this all off his chest.
Hmm.
And as a prosecutor, that's what I would be looking at. And then also looking at what corroborates these confessions.
Hmm.
you know, yes, he is exhibiting mental illness in other ways, but what corroborates this? What are the things that we have in evidence that we've seen that we have from other witnesses and other evidence that corroborates what he's telling us? Because that gives it more credibility. And then the idea that this is just something that's fabricated or this guy is just nuts and spewing off for who knows what reason
Yeah.
becomes less and less likely. So with this therapist here, I think we don't know enough yet, and that's really what the defense is trying to get at. I don't think it's a red herring at all. I mean, a red herring in the sense that it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. It doesn't
Hmm.
seem to be too relevant, but except for kind of the ethical and the
Yeah.
judgment of
Well,
this person.
and I mean, the 60 confessions are bizarre. He made
Mhm.
him to his wife. He's made it to guards. He's made it to all different people. Um, the fact that he was in solitary confinement immediately. He didn't go to the county jail. Now he's finally in a county jail after 2 years in solitary confinement, going from being the CVS employee and a father and a husband and living a fairly normal life to suddenly you're in that sort of situation. No criminal history whatsoever with this guy. And from what we understand, the guards, I mean, it was like cruel and unusual. I mean, it's something that really needs to be looked into. And I think they may be reevaluating some of their standards. But it sounded absolutely hellish and horrible for this guy who is innocent until proven guilty and doesn't really have a lot of solid evidence against him. If you're in that sort of situation of this hell, at some point, I would imagine you're going to say almost anything you can to get out of that torture. Is that going to be a strong argument if they try to make that in the case after the fact of all those confessions?
I mean, that could certainly be a defense argument. I agree with you, Tony, unless it's a real severe case where there is such a proven danger that this person has to other people.
Hmm.
Being in solitary confinement for 2 years could certainly drive absolutely anyone
Hmm.
insane. It truly is
Yeah.
cruel and unusual punishment. There have been so many, studies and real world instances to show that. I don't know how confessing is necessarily, the idea of what would get him out of that.
Hmm.
So, that's something that the defense would have to put forward with some more evidence and, and that is probably gonna have to come from the defendant in this case. There's really not many people who could testify to that unless they're trying to use the therapist to testify to that,
Do
and
you
that's why she's important here.
Sure. Do you see more confessions by people who are in solitary confinement versus general population?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. I mean, most confessions, will come in the beginning,
Okay.
and they will come when someone has been first arrested and are being interrogated and wanna tell their side of the story.
Hmm.
And they wanna tell what happened, and everything is fresh, and they're in this situation, and they just wanna get it out. And often when people are what we would term a confession, they think that they are just telling their side of the story
Hmm.
and that there may not necessarily even be any criminality to what they've done.
Hmm.
They just want to get the information out. And then those things can often become confessions or be termed as confessions because we have the evidence to back up what they're doing, to corroborate what they're doing. An example of that would be someone who maybe is a getaway driver
Hmm.
in a robbery. And they say, oh, well, I just drove my friends away. I didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Well, that's crime. So often people will talk about that because they think they're not really confessing
Hmm.
to anything. The other ways it comes in are the way it did in this case, where he made so many phone calls while he was in a state correctional facility. Those phone calls are taped
Hmm.
and recorded. The people making the phone calls, the inmates know they are taped and recorded, and yet you will get so many confessions that way.
Hmm.
Maybe something about talking to loved ones or just talking on the phone and they don't think about it. But I saw so many confessions and was able to use so much evidence that way because it's their own words, um, speaking voluntarily, even though it is from being incarcerated. And those often proved, incredibly helpful in cases. So I can see where the prosecutor is going using this, and I can see where the defense wants to put up the arguments you're mentioning.
When you have those confessions out there, how
Mhm.
difficult is it to backpedal on that and sway a jury the other way of, oh, he was not in the right mind or he didn't mean it, or is it like really sway your odds of being convicted once those things have been out there?
Well, confessions are incredibly powerful because it's coming from the defendant's own
Mhm.
mouth. They're telling you information that often law enforcement doesn't know, that no other witnesses know, and that can often go to their intent and their state of mind. So they are powerful
Mhm.
things. We also have these powerful safeguards where the judge will have a hearing beforehand to make sure that confession is voluntary, that there wasn't any police activity that forced a confession at all because there are forced confessions,
Mhm. Mhm.
unfortunately. So there will be that whole kind of hearing. By the time it goes in front of a jury, that has all happened.
Mhm.
And so those kind of indicia of it being reliable have already happened. And so then it's very difficult, I think, as a defendant or defense attorney to argue against a confession.
Mhm. Fascinating case. We'll see when it happens and when it goes to
Mhm.
trial here in October. If that date stays, everything changes in this case. So who knows? Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.